The smell of roasting turkey filled the home as Sophia stirred gravy on the stove, laughing at her mother's story about last year's burnt pumpkin pie. Through the kitchen window, she could see her daughter Emma playing on the back porch with her favorite dollhouse, the pink Victorian one Carlos had spent 3 months building by hand. The 3-year-old's curls bounced as she made her dolls dance, her tiny voice creating elaborate conversations only she could understand. "Emma, come inside, it's getting cold," Sophia called out, but Emma was lost in her imaginary world. Sophia's mother squeezed her daughter's shoulder. "Let her play a few more minutes, she's happy," went out to check on her anyway. His boyfriend of 8 months had seemed like a godsend after his husband died. Helpful, attentive, always offering to watch Emma when Sophia needed a break. But something about him had always made Sophia's skin crawl, though she'd never been able to articulate why. She'd mentioned it once to Carlos, who'd brushed it off. "You're just protective, babe. Your mom's happy. That's what matters." 5 minutes passed, then 10. "Emma!" Screams shattered the peaceful afternoon like glass exploding. Sophia dropped the gravy spoon and ran. Her mother stood frozen on the back porch, her hand covering her mouth, face white as snow. The dollhouse sat abandoned, tiny furniture scattered across the wooden planks. Emma's pink sequined shoe, the one she'd begged for at Target last week, lay on its side near the steps. "Where is she? Where is she?" Sophia's voice cracked as she spun in circles, her eyes scanning the yard frantically. The backyard bordered a dense forest preserve, 40 acres of old-growth trees that the family had always found peaceful. Now those trees looked menacing, like dark fingers reaching toward the house. "Emma, Emma!" Sophia sprinted toward the tree line, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. Carlos burst through the back door, still holding his football as relatives poured out behind him. "Call 911, now!" he shouted, running past Sophia into the woods. Collapsed onto the porch steps, sobbing. "Went out to check on her, he was just here. Where did he go?" Sophia's blood turned to ice. "What do you mean, went out?" "He said he'd watch her while I helped you cook. He walked out here maybe 15 minutes ago." 15 minutes. Her daughter had been gone for 15 minutes and nobody had noticed. The next 8 minutes felt like 8 hours. Sophia crashed through the forest screaming Emma's name until her throat was raw. Branches tore at her clothes and face, but she didn't feel them. Behind her, Carlos and their relatives fanned out, their voices creating a desperate chorus. "Emma! Emma! Emma!" Then she heard it, the most beautiful sound in the world, sirens. 3 patrol cars skidded to a halt in front of the house, followed by a K-9 unit. Officer Jake Mitchell, a 15-year veteran with kind eyes and graying temples, jumped out with his German Shepherd partner. The dog was magnificent, black and tan, powerfully built, with alert, intelligent eyes that seemed to assess everything instantly. "Rex, heel," Mitchell commanded, and the dog immediately sat at attention. Sheriff Tom Bradley met them at the front door, his face grave. 3-year-old girl missing approximately 20 minutes now, last seen on back porch. Mother says she just vanished. "Temperature's dropping fast," Mitchell said, checking his watch. "It's 35 degrees now, will be below freezing in 2 hours. We need to move." Sophia stumbled out of the woods, her clothes torn, mascara streaming down her face. "Please, please find my baby. She's only 3, she's afraid of the dark." Mitchell gripped her shoulders firmly but gently. "Ma'am, I need you to focus. What was Emma wearing?" A pink jacket with hearts and jeans, and 1 shoe, we found 1 shoe." Sophia's words tumbled out in a panicked rush. "Does she have a favorite blanket, stuffed animal, something with her scent?" Ran inside and emerged with Emma's yellow blanket, the one she'd had since birth, worn soft from thousands of nights of comfort. Mitchell held it to Rex's nose. Rex scent. The German Shepherd inhaled deeply, his entire body tensing. His ears perked forward, his nose working the air in rapid sniffs. Mitchell unclipped the leash. Rex find. What happened next would be seared into Sophia's memory forever. Rex's head snapped toward the tree line. A low whine escaped his throat, not of fear but of focus, of purpose. His powerful legs coiled like springs. And then he exploded forward. Mitchell grabbed his flashlight and radio, sprinting after the dog. All units, K9 has sent. Moving east into the forest preserve. We need backup and thermal imaging. Within minutes, 50 volunteers materialized. Neighbors, off-duty firefighters, anyone who'd heard the alert. They formed search lines with flashlights, but Rex was already 100 yards ahead, moving with such certainty that Mitchell struggled to keep up. The forest swallowed them whole. Back at the house, Sophia collapsed in Carlos's arms. What if we don't find her? What if? Don't, Carlos whispered fiercely, though his own voice shook. Don't even think it. That dog will find her. He has to find her. In the distance, they could hear Rex barking, sharp, insistent, moving deeper into the woods. The temperature dropped to 33 degrees. Emma had been missing for 35 minutes. And somewhere in those dark woods, a 3-year-old girl was alone, cold, and terrified, if she was even still alive. Rex's paws hammered against the frozen ground, his breath creating white clouds in the frigid air. Officer Jake Mitchell's lungs burned as he pushed through thick underbrush, his flashlight beam cutting erratic patterns through the darkness. The German Shepherd was 20 feet ahead, moving with singular focus that came from years of training and something deeper, an instinct that couldn't be taught. Rex, wait, Mitchell gasped, but the dog had locked onto something. His nose swept left, then right, then left again, processing hundreds of scent particles invisible to human senses. Every few seconds he'd pause, recalibrate, then charge forward with renewed intensity. Behind them the forest came alive with lights and voices. Sheriff Bradley coordinated the volunteer search teams through his radio. Grid pattern, 20-foot spacing, call out every 30 seconds. Emma, Rodriguez. Emma, honey, it's time to come home. The voices echoed through the trees, bouncing off trunks and rocks, creating a haunting symphony of desperation. Mitchell glanced at his watch, 6:47 p.m. Emma had been missing for 42 minutes. Core body temperature in a small child would start dropping rapidly after an hour in these conditions. He'd seen it before. Last winter, a 6-year-old boy had wandered from his campsite. They'd found him after 3 hours, his body temperature at 89 degrees, severe hypothermia. The boy had survived barely. But Emma was even smaller, even more vulnerable. Come on, Rex, Mitchell muttered. Work your magic, boy. Rex suddenly veered left, scrambling down a steep embankment. Mitchell slid after him, dirt and leaves cascading around his boots. At the bottom was a dried creek bed, its rocky surface treacherous in the dark. K9 unit, what's your 20? Bradley's voice crackled through the radio. About half a mile east of the residence, following a creek bed. Rex has definitely got something. Back at the house, Sophia paced the driveway like a caged animal. Her sister held her phone, refreshing the local news site every few seconds. Already the story was breaking. Toddler missing in forest preserve, massive search. Carlos stood with a group of neighbors organizing additional volunteers. His hands shook as he distributed flashlights and maps. Stay in communication. If you find anything, you radio immediately. Don't try to be a hero. Sat on the porch steps, her face buried in her hands. This is my fault. I should have been watching her. I should have. Where the hell is? Sophia spun on her mother, her voice sharp with accusation. Why isn't he out there searching? Looked up, confusion crossing her features. I don't know. He said he was going to check his car for extra flashlights, but that was, she checked her phone. That was 40 minutes ago. A cold dread settled in Sophia's stomach, but she pushed it away. Emma was all that mattered right now. In the forest, Rex had picked up speed. His barking changed pitch, shorter, more urgent. Mitchell knew that sound. It meant the dog was close to his target. "All units, Rex is alerting. Converge on my position," Mitchell shouted into his radio. The terrain grew rougher. Ancient oaks gave way to rocky outcroppings and dense thickets of mountain laurel. Mitchell's flashlight caught a glint of metal ahead, some kind of old culvert or drainage pipe, half buried in the hillside. Rex reached it first and began barking frantically, his paws scraping at the ground near a narrow opening. The pipe was old, maybe from a 1970s construction project, its concrete cracked and broken. The opening was barely 18 inches across. Mitchell dropped to his knees, his heart pounding. "Emma, Emma, honey, are you in there?" "Silence." He aimed his flashlight into the darkness. The beam revealed about 15 feet of pipe before it curved away. Roots had broken through the concrete. Water stains marked the walls. And there, wedged in a narrow section where the pipe turned, a pink jacket with hearts. "I've got her," Mitchell screamed into his radio. "I've got her. We need medical now. Southeast corner of the preserve, old storm drain near the ravine." Rex whined and pawed at the opening, desperate to get to the child inside. Mitchell pressed his face to the gap. "Emma, sweetheart, my name is Jake. I'm a police officer. Can you hear me?" A tiny, weak voice floated out, cold. Thank God she was alive. "I know you're cold, baby. We're going to get you out, okay? But I need you to stay very still. Can you do that for me?" Mitchell's throat tightened. "Yes, there's a here. His name is Rex. He's a good boy and he found you. He's going to help us get you out." Within 3 minutes, the area swarmed with responders. Firefighters arrived with hydraulic tools. Paramedics set up a warming station with heated blankets. Sheriff Bradley coordinated the extraction while Mitchell talked continuously to Emma, keeping her conscious, keeping her connected. "Emma, tell me about your dollhouse. What color is it?" "Pink." Her voice was getting weaker. "That's right. And what are your dolls' names?" No response. Emma. "We need to move faster," a firefighter shouted, attacking the concrete with a sledgehammer. Rex paced back and forth, whining continuously. Mitchell had never seen him so agitated. The concrete cracked. A firefighter named no relation, but the coincidence wasn't lost on anyone, wedged a pry bar into the gap and pulled with everything he had. The opening widened to 2 feet, then 3. "I can reach her," a female paramedic, slim and small, squeezed into the pipe. "Oh God, she's ice cold. Core temp is going to be critical." Time seemed to stop as the paramedic carefully, agonizingly slowly extracted Emma from the pipe. The little girl's lips were blue, her skin pale as death. Her eyes were closed. She wasn't shivering anymore, which was a terrible sign. When the body stopped shivering, hypothermia had reached a critical stage. Let's go, let's go. The paramedics rushed Emma toward the ambulance, but Rex broke free from Mitchell's grip and ran alongside them, refusing to leave the child he'd found. Mitchell didn't stop him. At the house, Sophia heard the commotion and ran toward the lights. She saw the ambulance, saw the paramedics working frantically, saw her daughter's lifeless-looking body on the stretcher. "Emma," she tried to push through, but Carlos held her back. "Ma'am, we need space to work," a paramedic shouted. And then, miraculously, Emma's eyes fluttered open. Her gaze found Rex, who stood vigil beside the ambulance, and the tiniest smile crossed her blue lips. As she whispered. Sophia burst into tears. Rex, still covered in mud and forest debris, jumped into the ambulance before anyone could stop him. He curled up next to Emma's stretcher as the doors slammed shut. Officer Mitchell stood in the flashing lights, watching the ambulance disappear. 53 minutes. They'd found her in 53 minutes. But as the adrenaline faded, one question echoed through everyone's mind. How did a 3-year-old end up a half-mile into the woods, wedged in a storm drain? And where the hell was the ambulance screamed through the night, its siren piercing the cold November air. Inside, paramedic worked with controlled urgency, wrapping Emma's tiny body in heated blankets while monitoring her vital signs. The child's core temperature had dropped to 91.3 degrees, moderate hypothermia, dangerous but survivable if they acted fast. Rex lay pressed against the stretcher, his warm body providing additional heat. Had tried to remove him twice, but Emma's fingers had clutched his fur with surprising strength, and her heart rate had spiked dangerously when they'd attempted to separate them. Let the dog stay, had finally decided. Whatever works. Emma's eyes drifted open and closed. Saved me, she murmured, her words slurred. The bad man saved me. His hands paused for just a fraction of a second. Bad man. Sweetie, what bad man? She asked gently, but Emma had slipped back into semi-consciousness. At Children's Hospital, the emergency room exploded into controlled chaos. Dr. Robert, the pediatric trauma specialist on call, had already been briefed. His team had warming equipment ready, heated IV fluids, warming blankets, heated oxygen. 3-year-old female, severe hypothermia exposure, approximately 1 hour in freezing conditions, rattled off as they wheeled Emma through the doors. Core temp 91.3, pulse 112, respirations shallow. Patient has been semi-conscious, minimally responsive. Sophia and Carlos burst through the ER entrance 30 seconds later, having broken every speed limit between the forest and the hospital. Sophia tried to rush to her daughter, but a nurse gently intercepted her. Mrs., I know this is terrifying, but you need to let the doctors work. The best thing you can do for Emma right now is stay calm and let them do their job. Through the trauma room window, Sophia watched in agonized helplessness as doctors swarmed her baby. They cut away Emma's wet, cold clothing. They inserted an IV. They attached monitors that beeped and flashed with numbers Sophia didn't understand. Carlos wrapped his arms around his wife from behind, his own tears falling into her hair. She's alive, that's what matters. Officer Mitchell arrived minutes later, Rex still at his side. The German shepherd was covered in mud, his paws bleeding from the rocky terrain, but he refused to leave. His eyes stayed fixed on the trauma room door, a low whine emanating from his chest. How is she? Mitchell asked. We don't know yet, Carlos said hoarsely. They've been in there for 20 minutes. Mitchell nodded, then called Sheriff Bradley. Tom, Emma said something in the ambulance. The paramedic heard it too. She said the bad man. Those were her exact words. A long pause on the other end. Is still missing. We've got units at his apartment now. Jake, you thinking what I'm thinking? Yeah, I think this wasn't an accident. Back at his house, detectives had begun processing the scene. Yellow crime scene tape now cordoned off the backyard. Sat in her living room, trembling, as Detective Sarah asked questions. When did you last see? Around 6:15, maybe 6:20. He said he was going to watch Emma while I helped Sophia with dinner. Then he said he needed to check his car for flashlights when we realized Emma was missing. And you haven't seen him since? Shook her head, tears streaming. I called his phone 50 times. It goes straight to voicemail. I don't understand. Why would he leave unless... Her face went white. Oh God, you don't think, wouldn't. He loves Emma, he. Mrs., I need you to tell me everything you know about. Where he's from, where he works, how you met him. We met on a dating website 8 months ago. He said he was from Ohio originally but moved here for work. He's a contractor. He was so kind after my husband died, so helpful with Emma. Detective's phone buzzed. She stepped away to read the text and her jaw clenched. Wasn't who he claimed to be. His real name was. He was a registered sex offender from Columbus, Ohio. He'd served 6 years for attempted abduction of a minor. He'd been released on parole 3 years ago and had violated that parole by leaving the state and changing his name. Mrs., I need you to come with me to the station, right now. At the hospital, doctor finally emerged from the trauma room. Sophia lunged toward him. "Your daughter is stable," he said, and Sophia's knees buckled with relief. "Her core temperature is up to 95 degrees and climbing. No frostbite. Some cuts and bruises, but nothing serious. She's a very, very lucky little girl." "Can I see her?" Sophia begged. "Of course, but I need to warn you, she's been through significant trauma. She may not be herself for a while." Sophia rushed into the room. Emma lay in the hospital bed, looking impossibly small surrounded by all the equipment. Her curls spread across the pillow, her face still pale but no longer that terrifying shade of blue. "Mama," Emma's voice was tiny, weak. "Baby, oh my baby." Sophia gathered her daughter carefully into her arms, sobbing. "I'm here, Mama's here, you're safe now." "Where's?" Mitchell, who'd been waiting in the hallway, looked at the nurse. "Can we?" The nurse smiled. "I think we can bend the rules this once." Rex padded into the room, his tail wagging slowly. When Emma saw him, her entire face transformed. For the first time since the ordeal began, she smiled, really smiled. She reached out her small arms. Mitchell guided Rex to the bedside. The big German shepherd placed his paws carefully on the bed frame and gently licked Emma's hand. The little girl giggled, the most beautiful sound Sophia had ever heard. "He found you, Emma," Mitchell said softly. "Rex is a police dog, he's a hero. He tracked you through the woods and found you in that pipe." Emma wrapped her thin arms around Rex's thick neck. Thank you for saving me." Rex's tail wagged harder, and he made a soft woof sound, as if to say you're welcome. Doctor watched from the doorway, smiling despite himself. He'd been a pediatrician for 20 years and had seen plenty of trauma. But this was something special. Then Emma said something that made everyone in the room freeze. "The bad man took me to the woods, Mama. He put his hand on my mouth. He said don't scream or he'd hurt you." Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, as if she were describing a trip to the park. "I bit him really hard. Then I ran. I hid in the dark place so he couldn't find me." The room went deathly silent. Sophia's face drained of all color. What bad man, baby?" "Grandma's." Carlos stumbled backward, his hand over his mouth. Officer Mitchell's radio crackled to life. "All units be advised. Real name is wanted for attempted kidnapping and attempted murder. Suspect is a registered sex offender with priors. Consider armed and dangerous." Mitchell looked at Sophia's horrified face, at Emma's innocent eyes, at the little girl who should have died in those woods but fought back with everything she had. Rex placed his head on Emma's lap as if to say, "I've got you now, you're safe." But the nightmare was far from over. Was still out there. And he knew exactly where the family lived. Detective Sarah stared at the computer screen in the hospital's security office, her stomach churning with each frame of footage. The neighbor's Ring doorbell camera had captured everything, and what she saw made her 15 years as a detective feel inadequate to process the pure evil playing out in front of her. 6:18 p.m. Walking calmly towards backyard, hands in his pockets, whistling. 6:23 p.m. Emerging from behind the house carrying Emma. The little girl's mouth was covered by his large hand. Her eyes were wide with terror. Her small fists beat against his chest, but he was too strong. He glanced around furtively, then moved quickly toward the tree line. 6:24 p.m. and Emma disappearing into the woods. 6:41 p.m. Emerging from the woods alone, his jacket torn, his hand bleeding. He looked panicked, disoriented. He ran to his car, fumbled with his keys, and drove away just as the first police sirens approached. "Son of a bitch," muttered, her hands clenched into fists. He tried to take her. When she fought back, he left her out there to die. Sheriff Bradley stood beside her, his face grim. "Pull everything you can find on. I want his life history in the next hour." What they discovered was a horror story that had been hiding in plain sight. Michael, age 43, born in Cleveland, Ohio. First arrest at age 19 for stalking a teenage neighbor. Released with probation. Second arrest at 24 for breaking into a family's home where a 10-year-old girl lived alone. He claimed he was checking on her because he'd heard crying. Served 2 years. The big one came at age 33. Had lured an 8-year-old girl from a playground in Columbus with promises of showing her a secret puppy. A jogger had seen him putting the screaming child into his van and called 911. Police caught him 3 miles away. The child had been assaulted, served 6 years of a 15-year sentence due to good behavior, and was released on strict parole conditions. Those conditions included no contact with minors, GPS monitoring, mandatory counseling, and permission before leaving the state. He'd violated every single one. He cut off his ankle monitor 4 months ago, said, reading the report from Ohio Parole Services. Changed his name, moved to Pennsylvania, and started dating women with young children. This was premeditated. He was hunting. At the hospital, a child psychologist named Dr. Miriam Foster sat with Emma, using dolls and gentle questions to help the little girl process her trauma. Sophia and Carlos watched through a one-way mirror, holding hands so tightly their knuckles turned white. "Emma, can you show me with the dolls what happened when you were on the porch?" Dr. Foster asked softly. Emma picked up a small doll with hair herself. She picked up a larger male doll, said, "Come here, Emma, I found a baby bunny in the woods. Want to see it?" Sophia gasped. Emma loved animals. Of course she would have followed him. "I went to see the bunny," Emma continued, her voice eerily calm. "But there was no bunny, picked me up. I said, 'Put me down.' But he said, 'We're going to play a game.' He put his hand on my mouth." Emma demonstrated with the dolls, her small hands recreating the nightmare. "His hand tasted yucky, like cigarettes. I was scared. I couldn't breathe good. He walked fast into the dark trees. I heard Mama calling me but said if I made noise he would hurt Mama, so I didn't scream." Carlos turned away from the window, his whole body shaking with rage and grief. "But then he put me down," Emma said. "He was looking at his phone. It was making beeping sounds. He looked scared. I thought maybe if I ran I could find Mama, so I bit his hand really, really hard, like Daddy taught me if a stranger tries to take me." Pride flickered through Carlos's anguish. He'd taught her that. When she was 2 years old, he'd taught her, if someone bad grabs you, you bite, you scratch, you fight. And she had. "Yelled bad words," Emma continued. "I ran fast. He chased me. I heard him behind me. I was so scared. Then I saw the dark hole. I crawled inside where he couldn't reach me. He tried to grab my foot, but I kicked him. Then I heard him running away." Dr. Foster gently touched Emma's hand. "You were so brave, Emma. You saved yourself." "Then they found me," Emma said, finally smiling. "Rex is my hero." Back in the security office, Detective's phone rang. "Detective, this is the forensics team. We found blood on the porch railing and on a tree branch near the forest entrance. DNA is being rushed, but preliminary typing matches records from Ohio." "What about the storm drain where we found Emma?" "Multiple fingerprints on the exterior. Dirt samples show recent disturbance. And detective, we found scratches inside the pipe, deep ones, the kind you'd make if you were desperately clawing at concrete. Emma wasn't just hiding in there. She was wedged in so tight that physically couldn't reach her. That pipe saved her life." "Felt sick, what else?" "We found phone records. He got 3 text alerts from his parole officer in Ohio while he was in the woods with Emma. They were threatening to issue a warrant. That's probably why he panicked and ran. He knew he was about to be exposed." "Where is he now?" "Unknown. His car was found abandoned at a truck stop 40 miles from here. We've issued an Amber Alert-style bulletin. FBI is involved now. This crosses state lines, and with his record, he's a federal fugitive." Sheriff Bradley took the phone. I want roadblocks on every highway within 100 miles. Contact every bus station, train station, and airport. Get his face on every news station. I want this predator caught. Now." At 11:47 p.m., the press conference began. Sheriff Bradley stood at the podium, Emma's innocent face displayed on screens behind him. "Tonight, we are searching for Michael, also known as age 43, in connection with the attempted kidnapping and attempted murder of 3-year-old Emma. Is a registered sex offender with a history of violent crimes against children." The press room erupted with questions. "Is considered armed and extremely dangerous. If you see this man, do not approach him. Call 911 immediately." Social media exploded. Within an hour's face was everywhere. News helicopters circled the forest preserve. Cable news ran the story on a loop: manhunt for alleged child predator. Tips poured in from across 3 states. Spotted at a gas station in West Virginia. Seen at a diner in Maryland. Most were false alarms, panicked citizens seeing monsters in every stranger's face. But at 3:22 a.m., a motel clerk in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, called 911. "There's a man here matching that description from the news. He checked in 2 hours ago, paid cash. Room 7, he's got blood on his hand." SWAT teams surrounded the roadside motel within 12 minutes. Snipers took positions. Negotiators attempted to make contact. The door to Room 7 was kicked in at 3:47 a.m. Sat on the bed, staring at the wall, completely still. On the table beside him, a bottle of whiskey, a bus ticket to Mexico, and a 9mm handgun. "Hands up now," officers screamed. Didn't move, didn't resist. He simply raised his hand slowly, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. "I just wanted to talk to her. I didn't mean." The lies of a monster caught in his own trap. As they dragged him out in handcuffs, photographers captured his face. Not scary or intimidating, just pathetically ordinary. That's what evil looked like. Not a demon, just a broken man who destroyed innocence. At the hospital, Officer Mitchell sat beside Emma's bed, Rex curled at his feet. Sophia's phone buzzed. A text from detective: "We got him, is in custody, Emma is safe." Sophia burst into tears. Tears of relief, rage, and overwhelming gratitude. Emma stirred in her sleep, her hand reaching out. Rex immediately stood and placed his head under her palm. The little girl smiled without waking. Justice was coming. But first, healing had to begin. 6 months had passed since that November night that changed everything. Spring sunshine warmed the courthouse steps as media trucks lined the street, satellite dishes pointed skyward. The trial of Michael, now known nationwide as the Monster of Forest Preserve, had finally begun. Prosecutor stood in her office on the 3rd floor, reviewing her case files one final time. At 38, she'd prosecuted dozens of violent criminals, but this case was different. This case had a 3.5-year-old victim who held the key to justice. "The evidence is solid," her assistant said, laying out photographs. Security footage shows carrying Emma into the woods, his DNA under her fingernails, his blood on the porch. His own GPS ankle monitor data before he cut it off puts him at the scene. Testimony from the paramedic about Emma's statements. "We've got him." But, asked, sensing his hesitation. "But the defense is going to argue the video is grainy. That DNA could have gotten under her nails from innocent contact throughout the day. That Emma's statements were made while hypothermic and unreliable. They'll create reasonable doubt if they can. Close the file. Which is why we need Emma to testify. She's the only one who can describe what's said, what he intended. Intent is everything in this case." Shifted uncomfortably. "She's 3.5 years old. Dr. Foster says Emma still has nightmares. She's terrified of courtrooms. Every time we've tried a practice session." "I know," his voice was tight. "Believe me, I know." Across town in the home, Sophia buttoned Emma's blue dress, the one the child psychologist said would help her feel safe and pretty in court. Emma's curls had been carefully brushed, a small butterfly clip holding them back from her face. "I don't want to go, Mama," Emma said quietly, her bottom lip trembling. "I know, baby, but remember what Dr. Foster said. Sometimes we have to be brave even when we're scared. The judge needs to hear your story so the bad man can't hurt any other little girls." "We'll be there," Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. Sophia's heart clenched. "Yes, but he can't hurt you. Daddy will be there, I'll be there, and there will be lots of police officers. You're completely safe." "Can Rex come?" Sophia had heard this question every single day for 6 months. After Emma was released from the hospital, Officer Mitchell had brought Rex to visit twice a week. The bond between the child and the German Shepherd was profound, almost spiritual. Emma's nightmares decreased significantly on nights after Rex's visits. "Baby, Rex is a working police dog. He can't come into the courtroom." Emma's face crumpled. "But I need him. I can't be brave without Rex." The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with reporters, concerned citizens, and victims' rights advocates. Judge, a 52-year-old former prosecutor known for her no-nonsense approach, surveyed her domain with sharp eyes. Sat at the defense table in an ill-fitting suit, his face carefully neutral. His attorney, Robert, a seasoned defense lawyer who took on unpopular cases for hefty fees, whispered in his ear, nodded, playing the role of cooperative defendant. Strategy was clear. Make the jury see as a confused man with mental health issues, not a calculating predator. Paint Emma's testimony as the confused recollections of a traumatized toddler who couldn't possibly remember events accurately. "All rise," the bailiff announced as Judge entered. The trial began with opening statements. Painted a devastating picture of premeditation and evil, had specifically targeted because she had access to a young granddaughter. He'd groomed the family for 8 months, waiting for the perfect opportunity. "Ladies and," said, her voice steady and strong, "this was not an impulsive act. This was a predator who stalked his prey. And when a 3-year-old child fought back with more courage than most adults could muster, he left her in a storm drain to die of exposure. The only reason Emma is alive today is because of a heroic police dog named Rex and her own incredible will to survive." The opening statement took a different approach. "My client has mental health issues. Yes, he made terrible mistakes in his past, mistakes he deeply regrets. But on that November evening, trying to rebuild his life under a new identity because society wouldn't give him a second chance, heard a child crying. He went to investigate. The child ran from him in fear. He tried to follow to make sure she was safe but became disoriented in the woods. Was it the right decision? No. But attempted murder. Intent to abduct. The prosecution's case relies on the confused memories of a toddler and circumstantial evidence. The first 2 days of trial proceeded with technical testimony. The security footage was entered into evidence. Forensic experts explained DNA analysis. The Ohio parole officer detailed violations. Officer Mitchell about the rescue, his voice thick with emotion as he described finding Emma wedged in that pipe. But everyone knew the trial hinged on one witness. On the morning of day 3, Dr. Foster met with in a private conference room. Emma sat in the hallway with her parents, clutching a stuffed dog that resembled Rex. "She can't do it," Dr. Foster said bluntly. "Every time we've practiced, Emma has a panic attack. Yesterday she vomited. This morning she couldn't sleep. She's 3 years old. The trauma of testifying could be worse than the trauma of the attack itself. What if we use closed-circuit TV? She wouldn't have to see." "We've tried that," she dissociates. Goes completely non-responsive. She needs something tangible, something that makes her feel safe. "What does she need?" Dr. Foster met's eyes. "Rex, she asks for him constantly. Where's my hero? Can Rex come? I can be brave if Rex is there. I've worked with traumatized children for 20 years. I've never seen a bond like this. That dog isn't just a pet to her, he's her protector, her symbol of survival. His mind raced. A therapy dog in court. It's been done before. Facility dogs have accompanied child witnesses in several states. But Rex isn't a certified facility dog. He's an active-duty K-9 officer. And more than that, he was directly involved in the case. The defense will scream bias. Let them scream, said quietly. Without Emma's testimony might walk. He'll claim everything was a misunderstanding and we can't prove intent beyond reasonable doubt. We need her voice. And if Rex is what it takes to help her find that voice. 2 hours later, filed a motion that would make legal history in Pennsylvania. Your Honor, the prosecution requests that K-9 officer Rex be permitted to accompany the minor witness Emma during her testimony as an emotional support animal. Given the extraordinary circumstances of this case, Rex rescued Emma and is directly connected to her feelings of safety. We believe this accommodation is necessary to ensure justice can be served. The courtroom erupted. Robert shot to his feet. Objection! This is outrageous. A police dog in the jury's view will create automatic bias. The jury will see a hero dog and a child and won't be able to think rationally about the evidence. Judge held up her hand. Mister, I'll hear your full argument. Ms., I'll hear yours. This is unprecedented. I need the weekend to research case law. We'll reconvene Monday morning with my decision. Outside the courtroom, news crews swarmed. Will the hero dog be allowed in court? They shouted at. She kept walking, but her mind was already preparing arguments. Inside, Emma sat with her mother in a victim's waiting room. Did you ask about Rex, Mama? Sophia stroked her daughter's hair. Yes, baby, the judge is thinking about it. Emma's eyes lit up with hope. If Rex comes, I can tell them everything. Rex makes me brave. Sophia pulled her daughter close, praying that Judge would see what everyone else already knew. Sometimes justice needed a four-legged guardian angel. Judge sat in her private chambers late Friday evening, her desk covered with legal briefs, case files, and precedent documents from across the country. Outside her window, the courthouse lights illuminated the darkening sky. She'd been a judge for 12 years, a prosecutor before that, and she'd never faced a decision quite like this. Her law clerk, Jennifer Park, entered with another stack of files. Judge, I found 6 more cases where facility dogs were used with child witnesses. 5 were approved. 1 was on appeal but later reinstated. Removed her reading glasses and rubbed her tired eyes. But Rex isn't a facility dog. He's an active K-9 officer. He was instrumental in the rescue. The defense has a legitimate argument about prejudice. With respect, Your Honor, the defense has already lost that battle. Every juror in that courtroom knows Rex saved Emma. It was the biggest news story in the state for 2 weeks. The Dyer specifically asked potential jurors about it. We seated a jury that could be impartial despite knowing about the rescue. Stood and walked to her window. Below, a few protesters held signs, "Justice for Emma," and "Protect our children." This case had become a lightning rod for every parent's deepest fear. Jennifer, what happens if I say no? What happens to that little girl? According to Dr. Foster's evaluation, Emma will likely be unable to testify. She'll shut down completely. The prosecution's case becomes circumstantial. His defense will claim he was trying to help a lost child. Reasonable doubt creeps in. And if he walks free, then a convicted predator returns to society. And we both know what the recidivism rates are for offenders like him. Was silent for a long moment. What happens if I say yes? Then we set a precedent. Every defense attorney in the state will cite it as grounds for appeal, claiming their clients were fair trials because emotional support animals created bias. So I'm damned either way. Judge, if I may speak frankly, Jennifer waited for a nod. You once told me that the law isn't about perfect decisions, it's about just decisions. A 3-year-old child fought off a predator with her bare teeth and survived in freezing temperatures because she was brave enough to hide. She deserves a chance to be heard. If a dog can help her do that, isn't that justice? Smiled slightly. You'd make a hell of a lawyer, Jennifer. I am a lawyer, Your Honor. Right hell of a judge, then. Over the weekend, both sides filed supplemental briefs. Robert's argument was forceful and well-researched. He cited federal rules of evidence regarding prejudice, cases where convictions were overturned due to courtroom irregularities, and psychological studies about how juries respond to dogs. The presence of a heroic police dog will make it impossible for the jury to view the defendant neutrally, wrote. They will see a child and her protector, and any testimony will be viewed through that emotional lens. This violates my client's Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial. Moreover, K9 Officer Rex is not a trained facility dog. There are no guarantees he won't react negatively to Mistress' presence, further inflaming the jury's emotions. His response was equally passionate. She cited the Americans with Disabilities Act, which required reasonable accommodations, and extended that logic to trauma victims. She referenced a groundbreaking Washington state case where a facility dog named had accompanied a child witness, leading to a successful conviction that was upheld on appeal. Emma is not merely reluctant to testify, she is psychologically incapable of doing so without support, wrote. The defense's concern about bias is noted but overstated. The jury already knows about the rescue. Rex's presence won't introduce new information. It will simply allow a traumatized child to access her own memories and speak her truth. Justice requires that we hear from victims, not silence them because their trauma is too profound. The prosecution also submitted a proposal. Rex would lie quietly beside Emma, out of the jury's direct if possible. Officer Mitchell would handle him at all times. If Rex showed any signs of aggression or disruption, he would be immediately removed. On Sunday evening made her decision. She called both attorneys. I've reviewed the briefs, the case law, and the expert testimony, she said. This is my ruling. I'm granting the motion with conditions. Rex may be present during Emma's testimony. However, Officer Mitchell must keep him on a short lead at all times. Rex will be positioned beside the witness stand where the jury can see him, but where he's not the focal point. If Rex displays any disruptive behavior, barking, lunging, or any sign of aggression, he will be removed immediately and the testimony will be stricken from the record. His voice was tight. Your Honor, I must state for the record that this is prejudicial error. We will be filing an immediate appeal. That's your right, mister. But let me be clear, I've weighed the interests here carefully. A child's ability to testify about a violent crime committed against her outweighs potential prejudice, especially when the jury is already aware of the circumstances. This dog isn't introducing new bias. He's enabling testimony that might otherwise be impossible. My decision stands. We reconvene Monday at 9 a.m. News of the ruling spread like wildfire. Legal analysts debated on cable news. This is a dangerous precedent, one former prosecutor argued. Courtrooms aren't therapy sessions. But victims' rights advocates celebrated. Finally, a judge who understands that justice means giving victims a voice, even when they're too young or too traumatized to speak easily, said Martinez, director of the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Abuse. At the home, Sophia read the news on her phone and burst into tears. Carlos wrapped his arms around her. Rex can come, Emma asked, looking up from where she was coloring at the kitchen table. Yes, baby, Sophia said, kneeling beside her daughter. Rex can be with you tomorrow when you talk to the judge. Emma's entire face transformed. The fear that had haunted her eyes for days melted away. Then I can do it, Mama. I can tell them about the bad man. Rex will help me be brave. That night, Officer Jake Mitchell brought Rex for a special visit. The German shepherd bounded into the house, his tail wagging furiously when he saw Emma. She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. "Hey there, little hero," Mitchell said softly. "Rex and I have a big job tomorrow. We're going to help you tell your story. Are you ready?" Emma looked up, her eyes serious beyond her years. "Will you stay right next to me?" "Every single second," Mitchell promised. "Rex too, we won't leave you." "Even when I see." Mitchell knelt down to Emma's level. "Even then, especially then. Emma, you know what makes you a hero. You were brave when it mattered most. Tomorrow all you have to do is tell the truth. Rex and I will handle the rest." Emma nodded slowly. Then she whispered to Rex, "Thank you for saving me. Now you're going to save me again." Rex licked her face gently, his tail wagging. That night, for the first time in 6 months, Emma slept without nightmares. She dreamed of running through a sunny field with Rex beside her, both of them free, both of them safe. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. The courthouse was surrounded by news crews and supporters holding signs. "We stand with Emma, and thank you, Rex." Inside sat at the defense table, his face pale. He'd heard about the judge's ruling. He knew what was coming. Straightened her suit jacket and took a deep breath. This was it. Everything came down to the next hour. In the hallway, Emma held her mother's hand with one hand and clutched Officer Mitchell's hand with the other. Rex walked beside them, his presence calm and steady. "Ready, sweetheart?" the bailiff asked gently. Emma looked up at Rex. The dog met her eyes and something passed between them, an understanding, a promise. "I'm ready," Emma said. The courtroom doors opened. History was about to be made. The courtroom fell into absolute silence as the doors opened. Every head turned, every breath held. Emma walked down the center aisle, her small hand gripping Officer Mitchell's larger one. Her blue dress swished around her knees with each tentative step. Beside her, Rex walked with perfect discipline, his ears alert, his dark eyes scanning the room as if assessing every potential threat to his charge. Sophia sat in the front row, tears already streaming down her face. Carlos had his arm around her, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. Behind them, sobbed quietly into a tissue, the guilt of bringing into their lives still crushing her 6 months later. At the defense table, stared at Emma with an expression carefully coached by his attorney, mild concern mixed with confusion, as if he couldn't understand why this child feared him. But when his eyes met Rex's, something flickered across his face. Fear. The dog had found Emma when thought she'd die in those woods. Rex had destroyed his perfect crime. Robert stood. "Your Honor, I must renew my objection for the record. This is..." "Noted and overruled," Judge said firmly. "Please be seated, Mr. Emma, would you like to come up here with me?" The witness stand had been modified over the weekend. A small step stool allowed Emma to climb up. A cushion raised her to where she could see over the edge. Most importantly, a space had been cleared beside the chair for Rex. Mitchell guided Emma up the steps, Rex following smoothly. The German shepherd settled into position at Emma's feet, his body a warm, solid presence against her legs. Mitchell took his position just behind the witness box, his hand resting on Rex's back. Approached slowly, her voice gentle. "Good morning, Emma. Do you know why you're here today?" Emma nodded, her fingers reaching down to touch Rex's head. The dog's tail gave one soft thump against the floor. "Can you tell us your name?" "Emma Maria." Her voice was barely a whisper. "How old are you, Emma?" 3.5. "Emma, do you remember last Thanksgiving?" The little girl's hand tightened in Rex's fur. The courtroom held its breath. "Yes." "Can you tell us what happened that day?" Emma was quiet for a long moment. Her eyes darted to the defense table where sat, and her breathing quickened. Rex, sensing her distress, lifted his head and gently pressed his nose against her arm. "It's okay, baby," Sophia whispered from the gallery, though Emma couldn't hear her. Emma took a shaky breath and began. I was playing with my dollhouse on Grandma's porch, came outside. She pointed at without looking directly at him. That man. He said there was a baby bunny in the woods and did I want to see it. What did you do? I went with him, I like bunnies. Emma's voice cracked. But there was no bunny, he picked me up. I said put me down, but he didn't. He put his hand on my mouth really hard. It hurt. I couldn't breathe good. Jurors leaned forward. One woman dabbed at her eyes. What happened next, Emma? He carried me into the dark woods. I heard Mama calling me but said if I made noise, he would hurt Mama. So I was quiet even though I was scared. His voice remained steady despite her own emotions. Did say anything else to you? Emma nodded. He said I was a good girl. He said we were going somewhere special. He said. She paused, struggling with the memory. Rex whined softly and placed his paw on her knee. Emma stroked his head and continued. He said it would be our secret forever and I couldn't tell anyone. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the court reporter's fingers on the keys. Then what happened? His phone made beeping sounds. He looked scared. He put me down and looked at his phone. I knew it was bad, so I bit his hand as hard as I could like Daddy taught me. You bit him. Really hard. He yelled bad words. Then I ran so fast, but he chased me. I heard him behind me getting closer. I was so scared I thought. Emma's voice broke completely. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Sophia started to stand, but the bailiff gently stopped her. Rex shifted, placing his head fully in Emma's lap now, his weight grounding her. Emma wrapped both arms around the dog's neck and pressed her face into his fur for several seconds. When she pulled back, her eyes were clearer. I saw the dark hole, Emma continued, her voice stronger now. I crawled inside, tried to grab my foot, but I kicked him. Then I heard him run away. I was alone in the dark. It was so cold. I thought I was going to die there. The courtroom was transfixed. Several jurors were crying openly now. But I didn't die, Emma said, looking down at Rex, because Rex found me. Knew this was the moment. She glanced at Judge, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Emma, can you tell us about Rex? Emma's entire demeanor changed. The fear melted away, replaced by pure love and gratitude. She slid off the witness chair and knelt beside Rex on the floor. The German shepherd turned his head to look at her, his tail wagging slowly. Rex is a police dog, Emma said, her small voice growing stronger. Officer Mitchell brought him to find me. Rex sniffed my blanket and he ran into the woods and he found me in the dark place where I was hiding. She wrapped her arms around Rex's neck. The dog remained perfectly still, as if he understood the significance of this moment. I was so cold and so scared and I thought nobody would ever find me, Emma said, tears streaming down her face now. But these were different tears. Not tears of trauma, but of gratitude. Then I heard barking, and Rex was there, and I knew I was safe. Officer Mitchell's own eyes were wet now. He'd been a cop for 20 years, but nothing had ever hit him like this. Emma looked directly at Rex, placed both of her tiny hands on either side of his face, and leaned toward the microphone. Her voice rang out clear and strong through the silent courtroom. You found me when I was scared. You're my hero forever. 8 words. 8 simple words from a 3-year-old child to the dog who saved her life. Time stopped. Not a sound existed in that courtroom, not a breath, not a movement. Jurors wept openly. The court reporter's hands froze over her keys. The bailiff turned away to wipe his eyes. Even Judge had to remove her glasses and dab at her face with a tissue. In the gallery, Sophia sobbed into Carlos's shoulder. His whole body shook with tears. Strangers in the public seats held hands with each other, united in this moment of pure, overwhelming emotion. Robert stared at his legal pad, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Beside him sat rigid, his face a mask, but his hands trembled. Rex, the hero of this story, simply licked Emma's face gently, his tail wagging, as if to say, "You're welcome, little one, that's what heroes do." Had no more questions. She couldn't have spoken if she'd tried. "The witness may step down," Judge said, her voice thick with emotion. But Emma didn't step down, not yet. She threw her arms around Rex one more time, hugging him with all the strength her small body possessed. "Thank you," she whispered again. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Officer Mitchell gently helped Emma down from the witness stand. Rex walked beside her, his body pressed against her legs protectively. As they passed the defense table, Rex's eyes fixed on with an intensity that made the man shrink back in his chair. The dog knew, he'd always known. As Emma left the courtroom with her parents, the gallery erupted in applause, unprecedented, unprofessional, and absolutely impossible to stop. Judge didn't even try. She simply sat back and let it happen. Justice had just spoken, in the voice of a 3-year-old child, and in the silent loyalty of a 4-legged guardian angel. The jury deliberation room felt heavy with emotion. 12 ordinary citizens sat around a conference table, tissues scattered everywhere, several pairs of red-rimmed eyes staring at the evidence spread before them. "I don't think we even need to discuss this," said Juror 3, a grandmother of 5. "That monster tried to abduct and murder that baby. I saw his face when she walked in with that dog. He knew exactly what he'd done." Juror 7, a former military officer, nodded. "The evidence is overwhelming. The video footage, the DNA, Emma's testimony, and the fact that he ran. Innocent people don't flee the scene and cut off ankle monitors." The foreman, a high school teacher named David, looked around the table. "Does anyone have any reasonable doubt about guilt?" Silence. "Then let's vote." 12 hands went up. Unanimous. They'd been deliberating for exactly 91 minutes, most of that spent crying and composing themselves after Emma's testimony. The actual decision had taken less than 5 minutes. Back in the courtroom, the bailiff's phone buzzed. The juries reached a verdict. The gallery, which had remained packed despite the 2-hour wait, erupted in whispers. Felt her heart hammer. 90 minutes was fast, but was it good fast or bad fast? Was led back into the courtroom in handcuffs. His face had lost all color. He'd seen that little girl's face, heard her words. He knew what was coming. "All rise," the bailiff commanded as Judge entered. The jury filed in, none of them looking at the defense table. Heart soared. That was always a good sign for the prosecution. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge asked. The foreman stood. "We have, Your Honor." "On the count of attempted kidnapping of a minor, how do you find?" "Guilty." Sophia gasped. Carlos squeezed her hand so tightly it hurt. "On the count of attempted murder of a minor, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the count of child endangerment, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the count of violating parole conditions, how do you find?" "Guilty." "Guilty, guilty, guilty, guilty." All 8 counts, unanimous on every single one. His head dropped to the table. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder, but there was nothing more he could do. The gallery erupted in applause and cheers. Judge banged her gavel but didn't actually try to stop it. Some things were bigger than courtroom decorum. Outside, news crews broadcast live. "Guilty on all counts in the Emma case. The predator who tried to take a 3-year-old's life will spend decades behind bars." Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Judge had reviewed every detail of criminal history, read the victim impact statements, and consulted with sentencing guidelines. Sophia stood at the victim's podium, her hands shaking as she read her statement. "You tried to steal my daughter's life. You tried to steal her childhood, her innocence, her future, but you failed. Emma is alive because she is brave. She is healing because she is strong, and she will thrive because she is loved. You are nothing. You will rot in prison and the world will forget you ever existed. But Emma will shine." Carlos read next, his voice breaking multiple times. "I taught my daughter to fight back because I never wanted her to be a victim. I never imagined she'd have to use those lessons at 3 years old. But she did. And she won. You lost the moment you underestimated her." Sobbed through her statement, apologizing to Emma, to her daughter, to everyone. "I brought this monster into our lives. I will carry that guilt forever. But I promise you, Emma, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know how loved you are." Judge's voice was steel when she finally spoke. "Mister, you are a predator who has shown no remorse, no rehabilitation, and no capacity for redemption. You violated your parole, assumed a false identity, groomed a family to access a child, and attempted to abduct and murder that child when the opportunity arose. This court's responsibility is to protect society from individuals like you." She paused, letting the weight settle. "On the charge of attempted kidnapping of a minor, 20 years. On the charge of attempted murder of a minor, 25 years. These sentences will run consecutively. With your prior convictions and parole violations, you are hereby sentenced to 45 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. You will be 68 years old before you even become eligible for release consideration, and I will personally write a letter ensuring you never see freedom again." Was led away in chains, his life effectively over. But for Emma, life was just beginning. Over the following months, something beautiful happened. Emma started sleeping through the night. Her nightmares decreased from every night to once a week to once a month. She started preschool and made friends. She laughed more. She played more. And twice a week, every week, Officer Mitchell brought Rex to visit. The bond between the child and the dog deepened impossibly further. Rex seemed to know when Emma was having a hard day. He'd rest his head in her lap and stay perfectly still, letting her hug him for as long as she needed. On good days, they'd play fetch in the backyard, Emma's giggles filling the air as Rex retrieved her pink ball over and over. On Emma's 4th birthday, Officer Mitchell arrived with an announcement. "Rex is retiring," he said, kneeling beside Emma. "He's 7 years old now and police dogs retire at that age. He's earned his rest." Emma's face fell. "I won't see him anymore." Mitchell smiled, exchanging glances with Sophia and Carlos. "Actually, we were hopping. Would you like to adopt Rex? Would you like him to live here with you?" Emma's scream of joy could probably be heard 3 blocks away. She threw herself at Rex, who wagged his tail so hard his entire back half wiggled. "Yes, yes, yes, Rex, you're going to live with me." The adoption was formalized the following week. Rex moved into the home permanently. He slept on a large bed beside Emma's, though most mornings Sophia found the big German Shepherd had somehow ended up in Emma's twin bed, the little girl curled against his warm fur. Rex became Emma's constant companion. He walked her to the school bus stop. He sat with her during thunderstorms. He let her dress him up in tutus and bow ties. He was patient, protective, and perfect. But Rex and Emma's story had a bigger impact than just one family. The Pennsylvania state legislature took notice. Representative Maria Santos introduced the Emma's Law, a bill expanding courthouse facility dog programs statewide and establishing guidelines for when rescue animals could serve as support animals for trauma victims during testimony. Emma's courage, combined with K-9 officer Rex's heroism, showed us that justice sometimes requires creativity and compassion, Santos said during the bill's signing. This law ensures that other traumatized children will have access to the support they need to be heard. The bill passed unanimously. Officer Mitchell received the Pennsylvania State Police Medal of Valor, but his favorite award came in a hand-drawn certificate from Emma, Best Police Officer and Best Friend Forever. He framed it and hung it in his office. Rex received the K-9 Medal of Honor and a lifetime supply of his favorite treats from a local pet store. But his favorite reward came every single day. Emma's hugs, her whispered "good boy, Rex," and her absolute, unconditional love. 3 years later, when Emma was 7 years old, she stood in her second-grade classroom for show and tell. Rex, now 10 but still spry, sat beside her in his retired K-9 vest. "This is Rex," Emma told her classmates confidently. "When I was 3, a bad man tried to hurt me. I ran away and hid, and I was very scared. But Rex found me. He saved my life. Now he's my best friend and my hero." She knelt beside Rex and hugged him. "Rex teaches me that even when you're scared, you can be brave, and that real heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they have 4 legs and fur." The class applauded. Rex's tail wagged. That night, as Sophia tucked Emma into bed, Rex already curled at her feet, Emma said something that made her mother's eyes fill with tears. "Mama, I'm not scared anymore. The bad man can't hurt me ever again. And even if I get scared sometimes, Rex is here. He'll always protect me." "Always," Sophia whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. Emma wrapped her arms around Rex's neck one more time before sleep claimed her. "Good night, my hero," she murmured. Rex gave a soft woof in response, as if to say, "Good night, little brave one. I've got you." And he did, always. Years later, when Emma graduated high school as valedictorian, she spoke about courage, survival, and an unlikely hero with 4 legs and a heart of gold. Rex, elderly but still dignified, sat in the front row with Sophia and Carlos, wearing a bow tie for the occasion. Emma's speech brought the entire auditorium to tears. "I'm standing here today because when I was 3 years old, a German shepherd named Rex refused to give up on me. He taught me that heroes come in all forms, that love is stronger than fear, that survival is just the beginning, thriving is what matters." She looked directly at Rex, who was watching her with those same intelligent eyes that had found her in the darkness so many years ago. "You found me when I was scared. You're my hero forever," she said, echoing those 8 words that had changed everything. Rex's tail thumped against the auditorium floor. "Because that's what heroes do. They save you. They stay with you. They love you forever." The end.